Around the NFL podcast is not a first-round draft pick.
Welcome to another edition of the Around the NFL podcast. My name is Dan Hanzus. I come to you from a virtual room filled with some heroes. Marc Sessler, Gregg Rosenthal. Well, boys, it happened. Remember Frank the Tank from that movie Old School?
Sure.
And when he said he had a nice little Saturday coming up. And he said he's going to Home Depot. Right. And all the frat brothers laughed at him. And I remember watching that film as a 23-year-old and being like, man, that guy's finished. Well, that was my entire weekend. I made 2 trips to Home Depot. I didn't even use the shopping cart. I used the big one, the big like kind of truck thing where you have to put lumber and all sorts of things like that. My in-laws were in town, and my father-in-law is extremely crafty as we work on this new home. So all sorts of projects, man. All sorts of projects. I mean, ridiculous. Changing filters, doing some light carpentry, building railings, staining wood, tending to a garden, installing locks, handles, sweeping, raking. I'm very sore right now.
Do you find any enjoyment out of this or no?
I do. It really is a challenge, this new world I'm in of home ownership, but it is rewarding when you finish the job. The thing about it is, though, and anyone that is listening right now that owns their own home will undoubtedly agree, it never stops. You finish one project, and then the next one comes, and the next one comes. So I understand that's part of it, too, but yeah, nice little Saturday.
I mean, the laundry list of activities that you listed are probably on the lowest end of the spectrum of things that I'm skilled at. I'm not skilled at those things. And
me either. And you know what's interesting about this stuff? Like, you come out of these weekends emboldened. Like, I have all these bricks randomly that were left behind by the previous owner. And now I'm like looking at, can I brick and mortar the front of this house? It's like, no, you can't. But you start to feel like you have the ability. And I guess with practice and reps, you do become more handy because I could speak for myself and probably the total of the Around the NFL podcast. We're not like the manliest men when it comes to, working with our hands and things of that nature. So you're kind of coming from behind, and we're on the comeback trail, though, or at least I am.
Yeah, I mean,
I am not. If we go to Home Depot, I just distract the kids for as long as we're there so Emeka can do all the buying and doing whatever's going on. But that's why, I'm team rent here. I don't have to worry about that stuff. My perfect weekend day is an overcast, not sunny beach day. You get there as early as possible. You spend the time at the beach. You leave maybe a little after lunchtime. And then the kids are kind of wiped out the rest of the day. That's a perfect Saturday for me, and I've done it weekly, I would say, during the pandemic. It's been great.
I would put myself in the category that's probably Dan is clearly pleased the wife with this home purchase. I mean, you're an all-star category at this point, and you've crossed over to a certain world where you really, the no complaints could be lodged against you for the most part. Gregg's activities outside of work seem to me also to be largely of the pleasing wife variety, and himself. But I mean, it aligns. I don't feel to be part of either of these universes in any way. I could purchase things at Home Depot. My dad was quite crafty at that stuff. But when you have a rental mindset, the last thing I do is hammer anything or touch a wall or recarpet any patch of floor.
And I think that ties into, it's a generational thing, because our parents were all buying their first homes when they were 22 or whatever, 23, and raising families, and you have to learn that stuff right away. Whereas our generation, at least in this country, like, it's almost unheard of to own a home before you're even 30, unless you come from a considerable means, or even
big
35.
Cities, yeah. There's a whole other world outside of these big cities we always live in. But yeah, you're right.
No, yeah, I mean, I can only speak for where I've lived in New York and now in LA. But yeah, it's it's rewarding, though, I will say.
Well, we're excited to come over and see the house, Gregg and I. We're going to come over, the two of us, and
just the two of you. I like that.
Yeah, just the two of us.
All right. Good stuff. Good Monday. It's the Monday show. Just 3 heroes and Ricky. I see Ricky as a hero as well.
A heroine.
A heroine. Is that in play still? Are we still
maybe
doing heroine? Because we've kind of dropped actress from the lexicon. It's actor. I didn't know if heroin is out now as well.
No, I probably misstepped there.
I feel like actress is still in the mix, but heroine is great in multiple ways, as to describe a woman hero.
Ricky,
or
come in. I mean, help us out. We're drowning here.
I mean, at its base, it's a compliment. I mean, you're not taking a jab at someone, but you.
Yeah, no, I would say that I am heroin to you guys.
Right. Well played. Well played.
All
right. Thanks for stopping in, Erica. All right, today's show. We are going to have some fun. Again, this is on my radar. I think it's on everyone's radar. The 17-game season. Yes, it's more football, but it's hard to kind of look at certain things the same way. So, for instance, we're going to talk about some PFF, Pro Football Focus, released their latest win projections for each of the 32 teams, and it's just messing with my head because I'm looking at the totals and I'm like, oh, this team is, supposed to win 10 games. Oh, that's a good season. That's 10-6 or maybe 11-5. No. Now that's a 10-7 season. 9 wins. No, that's a 9-8 season. What does it even mean anymore? It's going to take a while to get used to this, Marc.
Yeah, no, in fact, we've, taken a look at this list as a group, and I didn't even think about that the first time we did because I'm still in that 16-game mindset. It totally changes things. You win 9 games, you're essentially average.
Well, I feel like Vegas will win at least an extra 10% on win totals this year, just for the 10 to 20% of people that forget about it and just start betting on the wrong total.
That's true. So we'll check that out. But first, let's do some news. Ricky, hit it.
7-10. Come on, man.
10. The 7-10 only been made on television 3 times in the history of professional bowling on TV.
Come on, kid, do it.
Oh, he did it! He got the 7-10, Randy! He did it!
Woo-hoo-hoo! My goodness, the ginger assassin just dropped the 7-10. You bet, kid. You bet.
Oh, yeah. The ginger assassin, they call him. 18-year-old kid rolls a 7-10 split. 3rd time ever. Or I guess who's the 4th time ever to do it on television. Good. Ricky, can you get me his actual name? Although Ginger Assassin's an incredible name.
Who needs an actual name?
And maybe with Andy Dalton's got another, 3 to 5 years in the NFL. I had called him the Glowing Ginger Man early in my NFL media run. I know a lot of people call him the Red Rocket, I believe it was.
Red Rifle.
Red Rifle.
Yeah.
Maybe Ginger Assassin is what we should go with for Andy going forward. Anthony Newer is the young bowler's name. Congratulations to you, young man.
I mean, he's got to assassinate some people to get that. The bowler is clearly assassinating.
Were you watching bowling or something this weekend? After the Celtics game yesterday, by the way, I started flipping and the kids were around. And we saw some World Axe Throwing League championships on ESPN. That is next level. Kids were into that.
I watch a little Yankees, Rays, and then a little bit of the Masters, just a tiny bit. And then I didn't get a chance to check out bowling. I just saw that on Twitter. But I did grow up watching Saturday bowling on ABC with my dad. So that is my dad. Keith Hanzus averaged 185 for his entire amateur career until he had to get knee replacement a couple years back. I've told him to get back into it, get it on the senior tour, but so far no dice there. All right, the Ginger Assassin. All right, let's get to the news. Starting with what's going on with the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, if you are at all plugged in or just paying attention, something is off in the mix with the Eagles right now, with Doug Peterson being fired, with Howie Roseman still there, Jeff Lurie, the owner, very plugged in, perhaps too plugged in. And in general, that entire Super Bowl team, a legendary team in the city of Philadelphia, beat the Patriots in that shootout in the 2017 season, basically gone, wiped away. So what's going on behind the scenes? The Athletic did a great breakdown. Sheil Kapadia, Bo Wolf, Zach Berman worked together on a piece digging into it. And Gregg, it a lot of angles and a lot of ways to jump into this, but for me, the biggest takeaway was the danger when the owner gets too involved, and most specifically on the personnel side, and how that could lead to a domino effect that could create a lot of issues in an organization. What did you take out of it?
Yeah, I agree that Jeffrey Lurie has probably been more involved throughout than has been reported. That if he's putting his finger on the scale, as they said, with some of these draft picks, that's problematic. That he's watching tape, it's like, come on. And that the situation that they're in now with a lot of backbiting, and you can pretty much put it together here that it's a lot of fired Eagles coaches or personnel people, complaining about the setup where ultimately Jeffrey Lurie they thought was listening to too much of the analytics side, but also that the analytics side, Howie Roseman is like in this difficult spot too, where it's like Lurie's almost intentionally pitting the two sides against each other. And Louis Riddick, I feel comfortable talking about him because he's been on record about it. Granted, this was 4 or 5 years ago when he got fired. Just thought the whole setup was a problem. And you're seeing all these football guys who may not be inclined to trust the Howie analytics side even in the least bit from the get-go. And then Lurie almost sets it up in a way where he's the kingmaker and he's choosing which side he wants to believe at a certain level. And it's like you're just asking for problems. But it's amazing how Howie's kind of survived all of it.
I love some of the little details in this that talked about Jeffrey Lurie huddled away in his basement or above his garage or something, watching the Blue-Gray game and the Senior Bowl and the Japan Bowl. It's just like he's very, very dug in.
That's when he bought the team. That was from a Peter King article decades ago when he first bought the team. So he's always been into it, but he's starting, it seems, or maybe not starting, but has really ramped up his presence in terms of making day-to-day decisions.
I don't know. The thing is, though, it's like, look, the Eagles are worth $3.4 billion. He's the money man. It's his business. Unlike some owners, he is football first, and he goes to every practice. It's his I guess it's his prerogative to be as involved as he wants. But I would point to what Gregg said too. The structure of that organization seemed to stir up suspicion and animosity between an analytics department that a couple years ago was the belle of the ball. Everyone always talking about the forward-thinking Eagles and how they had
especially
that
the Eagles. The Eagles talking about that, letting everyone know.
Well, they were getting, I mean, if you go back and look at like old Roto World posts and stuff, they are just getting glowing reports from everyone. And the bottom line is there's always going to be a fissure between coaches and the analytics wave. And, I mean, Roseman is a friend, and he's probably been kept around longer than, I think he's probably the central antagonist to most Eagles fans because he's sort of, yes, they won a Super Bowl, but he also like clung to that roster way too long. The coaches in the Philadelphia, to me, seem as depowered as they are almost anywhere, maybe outside of Dallas. And, the way that Doug Peterson was treated, you can understand why he was pissed off, as he said, and frustrated and probably felt not listened to. And it made me, to spin it forward, it makes me look at Nick Sirianni and say, you weren't the first choice, but you're going to be a good little boy that does what the rest of this power structure wants to do.
Yeah, and Sirianni makes a lot of sense that he must know what he's getting into here, because you don't say no to a head coaching opportunity, and it wasn't like he was the hottest name on the market. But when you look at it, when Andy Reid was the coach for 14 years, they never had these Tuesday meetings with the head coach and the GM. It's Lurie, it's Roseman, and it was Doug Peterson every Tuesday. And win or lose, according to this Athletic piece, they would sit down and go over the things that Doug Peterson did wrong. And I can't imagine how that must have...
I'm pissed off, Angelo.
Yeah, I get it, Doug. How that would grind on you as a coach where you're just being meticulously picked apart. And it gave me two thoughts. One, yes, I think Sirianni, it's unfair to say he's like a puppet in all this, but very clearly he's going to have a defined role in the organization, and it's not a very loud voice. And two, it made me think Doug Peterson, I guess he's out of football right now. Whoever hires him next, I feel better about him because, if anything, he dealt with a lot of garbage behind the scenes and still put together a winning team for several years, including a Super Bowl champion. Right.
There's a couple things that aren't mentioned in the piece, which is that they've been the most injured team in the NFL in like 3 straight years. And sometimes like I just feel like that's a huge part of it. Like their roster looked awesome, and other than last year, they still ended up making the playoffs and usually into the divisional round, like getting over these injuries. But I think like how you handle success is not just like players want more money. It's everyone it's the owner who suddenly, as you mentioned, like wants a lot of the credit. Like, look who's important. Like, let's put it out there. It's the GM who wants a lot of the credit and putting out how great they are. It's the coach who wants a lot of the credit, and it's the team trying to make tough decisions of thinking they're in this window to win a bunch of Super Bowls and maybe not making the best personnel decisions. It's one of the reasons why the Patriots run, I don't think, will ever be duplicated, just because like there's so many problems of dealing with success. And they're showing it. Like, I don't know how long Sirianni's going to be able to last. He's probably got about a 2-year window, or else they're going to blow up this whole thing.
I think it's interesting that you mentioned the Patriots, because they came to mind because of any team in sports, or at least in the NFL. I mean, their coach is their GM, essentially, is their final, outside of the owner once in a while. Belichick doesn't have to worry about these layers of external power pressing against each other. And I mean, as a Jets fan, Dan, and as a Browns fan, it's like, I feel like I've read 20 hit pieces. This wasn't a hit piece, but 20 in-depth reports about what's wrong in Cleveland over the past 20 years. And the same with the Jets. And it's like, it's just poor organization. It's poor structure, and it's infighting, and it's ego. And it's a desire for power and money. And it's like, this story has been going on for thousands of years. The Eagles are just like today's version of it.
And you bring up Belichick and the Patriots. It's funny. There's no perfect way to do it, because Belichick is the be-all, end-all up there. And when you look at their past 4 or 5 years of drafts, maybe it would help to have someone else's voice and there be something in there. I think what it comes down to is you have to find that balance, and everyone needs to be talking together, and the analytics department has to be playing ball with the GM and the owner and the scouts, and I think that's just such a hard thing to get right. And the organizations that manage it build a long-term winner, and the organizations that don't, maybe you flash and you get an improbable Super Bowl victory like the Eagles did, but then it comes back and it will come back to bite you. Like Howie Roseman, I thought that was interesting too. When he was famously, and we've joked about it for years, that he was banished to the Poconos by Jeffrey Lurie when Chip Kelly was hired and was given team building skills. And they sent him to the opposite side of the NovaCare complex. That was the non-football side, which was a huge slap in the face to Roseman. And he said later on that helped inform how I changed the way I do my business, although he has kind of gone back to his earlier form, apparently. He did the same thing to the analytics guy that he was unhappy with, banishing him to the opposite end of the building. It's just like, whoa. And it's a big soap opera, ultimately.
It's fun. It's fun to get
fun
these
for
other
us.
Dynamics. I mean, the thing with like the owner meeting, like that's very typical, by the way, like an owner meeting with his coach to go over. And now whether
the tone of it, though.
Yeah, I think
right,
the tone is what stands out. It's not
exactly. But you're also getting this tone from, you can assume, the coach's side of things. And I think it's just winning. It's like winning papers over all this stuff. I think probably everyone had these feelings while they were winning too. But it's cool because it's like the Super Bowl raises everyone's profile and raises everyone's money and everything like that. And then the second you start losing, then the backbiting comes.
Well, I mean, I would note, though, that like they talked about Lurie sitting down in a sort of secret 3-hour meeting with Jim Schwartz like days into that Super Bowl winning season, because people thought he was looking for Peterson's replacement. It just seems like they never really bought into Peterson as a vision guy, someone he needed to have his hand held. And I think you're right that those meetings every Tuesday probably became, we all have things during the week. It's like the worst part of your week. And it's like that probably was Peterson's worst part of his week for years.
And I get Eagles fans are salty, and I've given them a little bit of grief for being so upset and angry and critical in the last couple of years, considering what you have that many fan bases have never had, which is a Super Bowl title. But you get it, because it wasn't supposed to, happen this quickly, go from being a Super Bowl champion to all this dysfunction. But, that's the way it goes. Good job by Bo Wolf, by the way, friend of the podcast,
Our guy,
involved in the reporting of that story. All right. In other news, speaking of The Athletic, Michael Lombardi does his thing over there. Michael Lombardi, he bounces around quite a bit. I can never really track.
Is he still there?
Where
I'm
he
not
is.
even sure.
I don't know.
Well, according to yes, he is
Okay.
there.
Okay.
Yep.
Guys, that's how you make money in this business. Just stack paychecks from all over the place, Anyway, Lombardi believes that the Washington football team will be willing to trade up to land a quarterback. Trey Lance, North Dakota State, star. We're talking about a Godfather type offer. Look at me. I bring up Lombardi, and now I'm bringing up Italian American motion pictures. That's his thing. Anyway, this would take a lot, obviously. They're sitting at number 19. They are the defending division champions in the NFC East, of course, Marc. So to get up to what I assume would be, around the top 5 to get Trey Lance, you're probably going to have to surrender everything, which they already did once before with RG3. Should they be thinking about doing that again?
I just think it's an interesting. I mean, there's a lot of varying opinions on Trey Lance, and Lance Zierling, our guy, his comparison NFL-wise was Josh Allen, but he doesn't seemingly have that same powerful arm. He is certainly a dual threat, and you've got Scott Turner there, young Turner. You've got Ron Rivera. They went to a Super Bowl with Cam Newton, so you wonder if maybe that's something they've always valued. If you're Ron Rivera, that kind of a quarterback that can do it all. I mean, he really is someone that with his feet, like you build an entire offense around what he can do on his feet. They talk about him being one of the smarter guys coming in at the quarterback position. He can read. He set his own protections as a runner, which your center could be doing that typically. He is like a brainy kid, but not fully formed. And so I don't know what you give up for him to get up there, but you have to really believe it. And I wonder. I mean, it's got to be a Ron Rivera thing because this is a team that took Dwayne Haskins a couple years ago. Trey Lance to me is someone that is just. You look at what people say; they're all over the map. So Washington must be fully in belief of what he can provide.
I just think there's so many teams that are going to make such big mistakes this draft because there's less information. Unless all these guys are just like good. Trey Lance is uniquely a black box of a draft prospect. He played one game last year, which sort of didn't even count. He threw 18 passes per game the year before. In the most highly schemed offense that exists, basically, Carson Wentz's North Dakota State offense, which is about as far from like an NFL offense as you can get. But he looks awesome. Like a lot of people think he looks better as a prospect than Wentz did, for instance. And like everyone loves him. But you're basing this off of 18 throws a game 2 years ago at the FCS level. And man, like you can make mistakes that way. But it's not that different with Fields and Wilson. Like they didn't play that much either. That for like big time college quarterbacks, they're in a different category too, and they have their own questions with scheme and like the how much the scheme helped, how much they played, and for Wilson like the opponent. So to me, it's like these guys just like look awesome. The quality of like the talent in terms of just like physicality and your arm strength. Lance to me has a good enough, more than a good enough arm. It's like they all look like grade A prospects, but you just figure some of these teams are going to totally botch this.
You called him a black box candidate? I never heard that before. With the black box, that's usually something you don't learn what happened until you're digging through the wreckage of the airplane. So
right.
I'm saying you don't know,
like kind of pointing your prediction and analysis here in a certain direction.
No, I'm really interested in Trey Lance just because like no one seems to know much about him, or he just seems to be the guy that's getting ignored in this process, even though he's pretty fascinating. Just his athleticism and where he comes from. The black box thing is more like, how do people really know how he's going to translate? It's a pretty big projection. Josh Allen maybe is a good comparison. Is that what you just said?
Yeah, Marc, that's what Lance Zierling said. Not
right, as a prospect, that makes a lot of sense to me because I think he was a really tough one to know how he would fit at the next level.
I mean, who was a really polarizing prospect last year? Justin Herbert. And
yes.
my team has the number 2 overall pick. I'm probably going to be rooting for Zach Wilson next year. Would I like if he had another full college season and all that stuff? Sure. But at the same time, it just feels like this is a crapshoot, really, no matter what. So I don't feel like the Jets are in some type of, or these other teams are in a total disaster situation, because you could do all the research and watch all that tape you want. But when the lights go on week 1 or whenever these guys get the chance, that's when you finally see whether they can, Gregg, play the guitar. Moving on.
A lot of guitar playing on this show lately.
Throw the football would be preferable, but
none of us. We should get my brother Dean. Dean went to college for guitar. You wanna see the tape, the Delaware tapes? Forget about that. We got a lot of Dean Rosenthal tapes playing all.
I would like to see Dean tapes.
Western Mass.
Right.
We're
not forgetting about the Delaware tapes. Nice,
but
try.
Also some like cover songs of like Kiss and Ugly Kid Joe and Guns N'
You are an
Roses back
A-plus
in the day.
deflector, but Dan and I are not off the case on the Delaware
the
tapes,
tapes.
nor will we ever be off the case.
And I know on your other podcasts, your best buddy is like a legit celebrity, and you guys do your comedy thing. If the Delaware tapes ever surface on that show and not on this one, this whole thing's over. We are folding up shop. That is non-negotiable.
That would never occur to me. No, I would not do that to you.
That's also giving Gregg incredible power over our careers, Dan. I don't know. I might return to still do an episode or two.
All right. What was I saying? Oh, up next. All right. This again. Josina Anderson reports free agent defensive end Jadeveon Clowney is visiting the Browns. Does this sound familiar? Yes, it does sound familiar because he already did meet with the Browns. I don't know if it was virtual or in person, but this is back in March. No deal. And can we just, and don't take this personally, Marc, it's not about you or your favorite team. Can we please just sign with the Browns already so everybody can get all excited about their hype bunny Browns and how Clowney is going to be across from Myles Garrett, and that's going to unlock this magic that we've been waiting. Can just do it already. Just sign and then let people start writing those articles, and then we could let the games play out, and then Garrett has a great year and Clowney gets hurt and does nothing. Can we just speed the process along here just a little bit? Ricky, please. And I know this is a personal sun firing because I don't want to, maybe you guys want to do more of these, but I want to fire this where's Jadeveon Clowney story going into the sun because nobody needs this much speculation considering the production. I'm sorry. Into the sun you go. Let me know where he is.
I mean, they also met last offseason, so this is an elongated flirtation.
Just do it.
I'm with you. I find it ponderous, but to me, it tells me more about maybe what they think about where they pick in the draft, the edge rusher position in the draft, which is certainly missing a Myles Garrett type character. Pushing better guys down the list. Like maybe they want to go into the draft with this position sealed up so they can take a cornerback or the best player available. But I'm with you, Dan. I find it juicy though. If my team signs the player that it really, I can't think of too many players that you're more happily antagonistic toward, and not without reason. But the whole scenario there, I find compelling if it happens.
Your friend Andrew Berry, the GM. This is what if I had a direct line to him, if I could tap into the GM app, if it existed. If you do sign, and you will sign Jadeveon Clowney for a 1-year team-friendly deal with nice incentives for the player if he stays on the field and makes plays. Do not say, I have defensive end opposite of Myles Garrett covered, and I don't have to worry about it, and I could turn my attention to other positions in the draft. That would be a mistake. Signing him would not solve any issues. Why don't you just bring back Olivier Vernon? What's going on with his Achilles?
Well, I thought Vernon like closed the season very well and was exactly what they were
popped
looking
an Achilles, though, right at the end. So
right, but he's just off the table right now. I don't think it solves the position, but I think they're probably just thinking.
I think it's incredible upside. Incredible upside, and if you take out last year, he's been very consistent overall. I mean, maybe he isn't like the transformative number 1 overall pick, but he's better than most number 1 overall picks, and he's had a pretty consistent career until last year. I do wonder. I think it says more about the time.
How come
of
nobody
year.
wants
We just
to pay him,
got we got no news to talk about. Justin Houston's visiting the Ravens. Throw that in there. We just got nothing to talk about. There's no news right now.
My counter to that, Gregg, is how come nobody wants to pay this guy? It took forever for the Titans to finally give him that 1-year deal, and now he's on the market again in April.
I think the way he plays and the lingering injuries that he's played through are a serious concern because he plays. He's kind of like the running back that takes 250 hits every year. Is his career going to be shortened? And I think that was the concern for Clowney, and it's kind of coming out that way after last season. So I get the concern, too.
Anyway, I apologize if I got a little fired up there, but,
We'll wait until he signs. We'll wait until Thursday by then he will have signed, and then we're going to give the exact same analysis again.
I know. But let's just not do another Clowney story until that signing happens. And, he was the first overall pick in, I believe, 2014, right?
Mm-hmm. That's right. Yep.
And this podcast started in July 2013. So it's like, I feel like we've been talking about this guy for a long time for somebody that's never had 10 sacks in a season. Anyway, all right.
I hope he signs with the Jets, actually, because then you're going to be in a really weird place.
He won't. Joe Douglas is too smart for that. I trust you, Joe. Kevin James will play Sean Payton in a Happy Madison picture. Happy Madison is the production company owned by Adam Sandler. And Adam Sandler has a extended deal with Netflix to put together these movies with his buddies and put them on Netflix. And they apparently do pretty well regardless of their artistic achievement. And Kevin James, the full-figured comedic actor playing Sean Payton in a movie. What do we think about this?
Well,
I think if I'm Kevin James and I'm reading Peter King write about it, and like the one thing that Peter King mentions is, well, Kevin James is gonna have to lose some weight for this role. I'm thinking
Ouch.
who are you to talk, first of all, and you're just talking about me like that. And by the way, Sean Payton, like Kevin James, if we're gonna go there, has fluctuated over the years, certainly. He's a guy.
Okay.
He can be
I know what
like
you're
jacked
saying.
at times, and he can look like the coach at the end of the season,
And-
like his old coordinator Rob Ryan. It can go back and forth. That's all.
And King also was wrong in not understanding the business involved here. Again, Happy Madison, they don't really care what kind of project they're putting together. They're just getting their buddies together. There's no I need to dedicate for this role to play Sean Payton. Kevin James is going to stay exactly on his diet and cash the paycheck and do the movie, and then a bunch of people will watch it on Netflix, and that'll be it.
I'll watch it now.
I don't think they were going for the most realistic looking Sean Payton casting choice, because Gregg is right. There was a period, and it was around 2014 or so, that Sean Payton, who is now 58, so this is not easy to do, transformed his body and became legit muscular. He looked awesome. And I think that's waned since then, but he is not young. But this happened in 2012, so you have to cast someone that looks like he did back then. He didn't really have gray hair back then.
No,
he was a different looking guy.
It's about Bountygate.
Well, it's about the season. Bountygate, I assume, will be almost the preface to it, and it's about the season he spent away from the game, that he coaches his kids' team and learn to love again. It is kind of funny though that the whole precursor of that is getting suspended for taking kill shots on a quarterback. And by the way, there was a pretty well reported drug controversy that, to me, I always felt was part of Bountygate, of the Saints got in a little trouble with some how they were using prescription drugs, but that probably is going to be glossed over in this movie.
Most
I
likely.
do have some
The
casting
Kevin James,
choices
the
for you.
The Paul Blart male cop actor Kevin James probably not going to hit the drug abuse behind the scenes of professional football angle very hard.
Don't think so. I do have some casting choices for you, though, which I mentioned.
Good.
This kind of
Yes. This is good.
well, it did kind of just said, is it just you're giving it to your friend? So I want to throw, and we could get Ricky in here if she wants to.
Is this a
chime in.
slideshow? Are you?
Well,
wow.
so here it is. I would say that the vast majority of who I'm going to mention, you would just know their household names. But there's a couple where heard the name, but I'm not sure I can put a face to it. So I wanted to help you out there. You can just sort of tell me yes or no. Well, I wasn't necessarily going there first, Ricky, but we can.
I went by your list.
Well, it's okay. So let's just say, if you want to look, I'm going to start with a couple people that I think you could make look like Sean Payton.
Okay.
Daniel Craig, we could start with. I understand that he's a super hottie, but
he's fine. Yeah.
Okay, but I mean, he's sort of
that.
perceived that way.
Super
If you dressed him up as Sean Payton, I think you got a more Sean Payton-esque look than Kevin James there.
No, that's a good one. And you
Okay.
know what? You say when he was cast as James Bond, and he was an excellent Bond, some of the criticism was that he wasn't quite photogenic enough to pull off James Bond, who's supposed to be a suave Pierce Brosnan type. So, yes, I think you can put him in the Sean Payton world. I like that one.
Okay. I'm just going to throw this name out. There's no photo, or maybe there is. Gregg Kinnear.
There's no photo of Gregg Kinnear on the internet?
Well, no, there is.
There he is.
Look,
that's a good one, too.
They are the same age. I think, this movie is
Very
going to
good,
you're
actually.
going to have to be a little bit dramatic in terms of the backdrop. Greg mentioned you're in chaos in a way if you're Sean Payton during this year of your life. And then something good has to come out of it. Gregg Kinnear can kind of rainbow through that whole arc of emotions. I like him
And
as
Gregg
an actor.
Kinnear is probably available because I feel like it hasn't been too hot since As Good as It Gets overall.
He seems to be.
Also, he could play you. I mean, he's like a little like hotter version of you, Marc. So I like that as well.
He's a lot
I like
hotter
that
than
one.
I am.
Underrated Kinnear. You know, a lot of range. Talk soup to dramatic stuff. Let's do it.
Not much hotter than you, Marc.
Steve the Pirate in Dodgeball.
Can he command the room? Can he command an NFL locker room, Gregg Kinnear? That's
Absolutely.
part of it. That's part.
But
of
he
it.
also is not with an NFL locker room. Can he command sixth graders? I think he could.
That's true.
What else?
How about this? Alan Tudyk. Let's throw that up there, Ricky.
Yeah, we could
I'm
use
going.
a photo
These are the
there.
ones where I'm going for looks.
Don't know who that is, but
Oh, that's Steve the Pirate from Dodgeball.
Yeah, good job, Ricky.
He's been in lots of stuff, but okay.
Yeah.
This one, I think, if you look at Sean Payton's facial structure, Greg German, who was famous for Ally McBeal.
That guy.
no one knows who these guys are.
No, I know him. He's a been around the block TV actor.
Absolutely,
Greg German, yep.
absolutely. Steve Zahn, I threw in there as a possibility.
Zahny? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, because now he's a little bit older. Their age is not that far apart.
Plus, this is a comedic film, most likely, and he's
Sure.
done comedic work. Okay.
He's a New Orleans guy. Did Treme? He was very good in Treme, actually.
Okay.
So there's
He
some
also
connection
seems
there.
available to me. Now, these ones are just more. I'm throwing out some
more.
household
Okay.
names.
Let's,
Yeah, well, we
keep
can just
moving.
rip through these. I don't know if
Okay.
you have photos of these. Woody Harrelson, who
Yes.
could do anything.
Woody's good.
I would watch that. I think you need some
would.
pop. Kevin James, at least, to each his own. He's got pop. He's got a fan base. I think that's good.
That's
the
why
Ally
these.
McBeal guy, maybe not so much. Woody Harrelson, yeah, we could work.
Yeah,
with
that's
that.
why I'm going into more movie star world here. Now, these ones are not for looks so much, but Steve Carell, how would he not do a great job at this?
No, doesn't seem like a football coach.
Okay,
type of guy.
so we got to know there.
NFL.
I mean, we're batting a pretty good batting average here so far. How about Dennis Quaid if he were maybe a little younger? But he's a
I need a
football
break
guy.
from Quaid. I need a break.
All right, okay, so that's a no. If
What,
you
you've been going heavy Quaid lately?
I don't know. Whenever there's like conversations about a sports movie, everyone's like, "How about Dennis Quaid?" It's like, all right, let's just.
How about
well, I was
Randy
trying to
Quaid?
please that part of the room if
Yeah,
someone's looking for that kind of
I'm
guy.
cool with him for now.
This guy may be also a little overexposed right now, but Chris Pratt, if you really wanted to pull in like a certain audience,
Yeah.
Too young though. I mean, I guess
Too-
you could
little
age
too
him
young.
up.
little
Could
too
age him
young.
up.
Yeah. How about this? Sean Penn.
I want to see that. I want to see that movie. I think it'll be an insane movie. Sean Penn playing the children.
I struggle with like
thing.
Sean.
I think, yeah, I want
Sean
that.
Penn
Give
in
me that.
a Happy Madison production. That's interesting. I'm interested. I'm intrigued. That's good.
The last person I would note, because this is where we are in a society at this point. Like, of course, he could do this. Sean Payton plays himself.
Unsolved Mystery style. Okay.
I mean,
I need to know the tone of the film.
He's providing notes. I think it's going to be a happy, it's teaching kids and learning life lessons, and he's grumpy at the beginning, and then he has some hijinks with the kids, and that connects him to the love of the game. That's why Sean Penn would be at once the worst possible choice and the one I would want to watch, because I heard Sean Penn lately on like a podcast, and he seems off his rocker at this point. He seems a little out. He seems out there. The novel that he wrote sounds like the thing I like to read. The last thing I would ever want to read is Sean Penn's novel.
And just, one bit of unsolicited advice to Adam Sandler. When you're casting really anyone and you're forced to choose every time between Kevin James, Rob Schneider, and David Spade, you've probably boxed yourself in a little. Let's just open up the net over at Happy Madison Productions.
I mean, that would have been true 15 years ago, so it's even doubly true now. So,
two quick news items before we get to the PFF win projections.
Yeah.
First, the Cardinals, who traded for DeAndre Hopkins last season, they fleeced Bill O'Brien and the Houston Texans in that deal. They received something called, we're up for a Cyclops, as everyone knows. And I heard from Ricky that the live stream of the award show will be on April 21st. So we might have to find a way to connect that to the podcast when that time comes. So we got a Cyclops nomination. Hopkins and the Cardinals, more specifically, received the Alpha Award for Best Sports Transaction of the Year. That one didn't ring quite true to me because Tom Brady feels like one of the best free agent signings ever. How do you? I mean, I know nobody wants to give Brady or his team any more awards than they already get, but how did the Bucs not win that hardware?
are they not judging off of the idea of what they gave in return. I mean, I'm with you. Like, the most impactful signing was Tom Brady, but like, if you looked at the best trade or swap, I would give it to DeAndre. But what you're really saying also is that the Texans made the worst move of last offseason.
Well, you know what? So this is from. I've never heard of this before, but it's from the Sloan Conference, which is an analytics conference. So they're saying from an analytics perspective, maybe who used the data, who fleeced the other team. You know who won in 2020? Your New York Yankees, for a player I've never heard of because I'm not a big baseball fan. DJ LeMahieu, that acquisition won in 2020. I don't know how that held up.
Yeah, he's the reigning batting champion, DJ LeMahieu.
Oh, LeMahieu.
But yeah, we love DJ. We call him the Machine. All right. Oh, the Sloan. People get excited about that Sloan stuff.
I want to know whenever I see people tweeting about the Sloan Conference and stuff, though, because they're all about into analytics. They're all about into analyzing how to best use like a payroll and contracts. I always want to know, how much are the panelists getting paid? Like, right. And what are the differences in the panelists? Because that would inform like which panels you would go to. Like, do I want Kevin Clark at a certain value or Bill Simmons at another one? Like that, I think they should.
Kevin James there.
Right. Because they're analytics, I think they should release that to the public. They're all about the data. They should release that data.
We should. I think getting Clark on here to say how much he got paid by Sloan would be awesome.
For all I know, they don't get paid at all, but that would seem weird.
Finally in the news, it's another trope alert. I told you it's my responsibility to you, the listeners, to keep you up to date on all the tropes as we approach a 2021 season.
Trope alert. Trope alert. Trope alert.
George Patton, the general manager of the Denver Broncos, is hoping not Peyton, forget about that. He's Patton on this show. Okay. He needs Drew Lock to take the next leap forward and make the Broncos a playoff team. Well, guess what? Good news. Broncos guard Dalton Risner told Matt Lombardo of Fansided on his podcast last week that Drew Lock has been having film sessions with Hall of Fame QB, wait for it, Peyton Manning. Hit me with that trope alert again.
Trope alert.
Peyton Manning
Trope
meddling with a team,
Trope alert.
ostensibly
Trope
to
alert.
help them.
Trope alert.
But that's not always the case. That's not always the case at all. Peyton Manning meddling.
The whole Peyton Manning as like a football Svengali has taken a big hit with his undying support of Adam Gase. Like, that's the guy he stood on a table on more than any other player or coach.
Big time.
And so it hurt Manning.
I was thinking like that British trope lady. I don't know who she is, but I think at this point we should get together for drinks with her just to learn more about her life. She seems enjoyable. Am I wrong?
Yeah, I'd like to see who she is. She's
Forceful.
had a big impact.
Sure, yeah.
She seems forceful to me.
It seems like you would like to have some private time with her, if you could.
No. I said as a group we would.
Sure.
Marc definitely likes a forceful British woman. That's.
I can see that. Yeah, I can totally see that.
That's unconfirmed.
A little change of pace, if you will. That's what's happening in the news. Marc, did you have something to lead us into our next segment, or transition us out of this current one?
Well, I can never tell what day it is anymore. I'm sure I'm not alone, but I didn't even realize we were in the double digits of April. But April 12th, this is just a little quick. There are some interesting things.
The double digits of April. They always sneak up on you. Do
you know what happened, speaking of baseball, on April 12th, 144 years ago?
144 years ago. Whoa. In
1877, the first catcher's mask was used in a baseball game.
Okay.
I can't believe it took. How many games were played before that? Because that feels like a recipe for mouth disaster.
Those guys worked in meat packing plants back then. They didn't care. Take a baseball to the face.
It's old Johnny and Billy died in the first 2 days of the season, so let's put on a mask.
Put on a mask.
So, also on April 12th, this is a significant day, 110 years later, after the first catcher's mask was featured, in 1987, 21 Jump Street premiered on Fox.
Is this going to lead to you giving us more casting options for Sean Payton? Because if so, it's been exhausted.
No, but then the other thing that happened on this date that stood out to me, which I think you guys I witnessed this in person, and was It caused quite a ruckus in the tabloids. In 1995, Drew Barrymore appeared on the Late Show, the David Letterman show, and basically jumped on his desk and flashed him frontally from the waist up.
It was Dave's birthday.
It was his birthday. That also happened on this date. So it's not just a meaningless day just to cross it off the calendar and go walk around.
Little Marc Sessler, this date in history. I like that. Drew Barrymore, to show you how far things have... And by the way, Drew was my girl. Like, everybody had, like, especially when you're younger, a celebrity that was your celebrity and you just loved everything about her. Drew Barrymore was, like, my ideal of the peak of what a woman could be. And so I was a huge fan of her in the 90s. So when that happened, I was like, oh, that was pretty cool. She was shamed. Like, shit, like, her career took on water after that. And you think about it, like, if that happened today, people would be like, oh, that was a pretty cool, crazy thing. But back then, she was basically branded with a scarlet letter. She
was a bad girl. She was too naughty, and, like, it brought up all these other conversations about her.
Ricky does that to us every week. It's like, that's not a big deal.
Weekly.
Gregg's like, someone said something that made me uncomfortable. I'll be quiet.
No one said anything. Well, the Ricky part, yes, but I meant the Drew Barrymore. You had more background knowledge on all that as a seminal moment. It was interesting to learn.
Wow. All right. Well, this really, the segment really landed gracefully, but I liked it overall.
I don't think we're going to be, that segment will never appear on this show ever again.
Why not? It's a good transition.
I just felt like this month feels highly anonymous to me, so I was trying to drill down for a little bit of identity, calendar identity.
That was good. I enjoyed it, and I think it's something we should bring back.
We're in between. We're in between on like the NFL calendar. We're in between with this pandemic. It's just sort of like a transition. This is like the Nick Sirianni of months right now. It's just like get it out of the way till we move on to the real stuff.
Ricky, you could have also jumped in there and broken that uncomfortable silence when Gregg turned off his mic to
Well, I was going to
just
see how long it went.
Yeah.
And I was just like going to let that play out, and then I was going to come on and just flash you guys.
Yeah! All right. Good stuff. Gregg has now left the studio. He's not even on the show anymore. PFF. They do it. Everyone respects PFF. It's Chris Collinsworth's site. Does he get all the money? Like, how does that work? Did he just invest in it, or did he launch it? Where does Collinsworth come down?
No,
I know it's based out of Cincinnati, isn't it?
Yes.
He did not launch it. It existed and was robust before Chris Collinsworth was ever involved. At some point, he invested and became, I don't know the percentage. It seems like it's a pretty high percentage. At some point, he became like one of the owners, if not the main one. But
definitely
that was pretty well
mutually
into the process,
beneficial for both sides, it sounds like Collinsworth getting
Definitely.
involved. And
Big time.
much respect to all those that worked tirelessly to get PFF off the ground before he arrived.
That's great for the Cincinnati community.
No, it's been huge for the Cincinnati community. Just enormous.
Massive.
The pride.
All right, so they do it every year. NFL win totals, always, as Gregg knows very well, one of the more popular ways to bet the NFL, which we do not do, by the way, because we are employees of the Shield. However, people outside of the walls of our virtual building are free to do these things, and they enjoy it. And that's a big... people like that in sports, the idea of wagering. Never my thing.
They do.
It never really was my thing, but I dabbled in my youth, and some people are obsessive about it. Marc, did you ever get involved in the old days?
No, because I never had the capital. I probably spent my money poorly, if anything, but gambling seems like a poor way to spend it also for many people. But a little bit of horse racing. When I lived in New York City, I'd go to the off-track betting with a couple friends, and you drink
OTB.
some beers. Yeah, but some of those, if you ever walked into one in Manhattan, some of them are the end of the earth.
Or
you
just take the subway out to Aqueduct. That was a weird afternoon that I partaked in there. I saw this speculation, by the way, that the NFL with this new CBA, they have an out after like 5 or 6 years, something like that. And some of the speculation is that by then the in-game betting will be such a big part of the broadcast that like it'll provide an opportunity for the NFL to take this out and like renegotiate things related to that it's providing all this extra value. We'll see. I don't know. But things have moved pretty quickly on the like betting front, including how the NFL treats it. It's not too long ago that the NFL didn't allow our old friend Michael Fabiano, who's no longer at the NFL, not to do this fantasy football conference with Tony Romo because it was loosely associated with betting. And now the NFL's got owners, buying betting companies, buying FanDuel, buying all this stuff. They're kind of embracing it now. What, you can't talk about that?
No, now I'm being silent in case the bosses listen to this and are unhappy with you.
No, they wouldn't be. I think it's totally. I think they've been pretty clear about it. Roger Goodell has been out and about that they're cautious, but they're cautiously like allowing this stuff now.
Yeah, absolutely. Things have changed in a big way over the last 10 years. All right, let's get into it. And again, this is all based not on 16 games, but 17 games. Just go through the divisions. AFC East. I'm just going to say what their totals are, and then you guys jump in and tell me if something doesn't pass the smell test to you one way or the other, okay? They have the Bills at 10.5 as a significant division favorite. The Dolphins and Patriots sitting at 9, which puts them right on the playoff bubble. And then the Jets, and I imagine this is a jump from last season, they're up to 7. So a competitive division with the Bills is the clear favorite. Anything jump out to you there?
It's a lot of faith in the Jets. I like it. I kind of think that you look at where they were the year before. They did win a certain amount of games with not a great team. I mean, last year, it's almost as hard to go winless or close to winless as it is to go 500 sometimes. And so I think they'll bounce back. It's a lot of faith in Robert Saleh and in Zach Wilson, whoever they draft.
It's a 10-loss season, though. And again, when you look at the difference in schedule, but that 7-10, would that be progress for the Jets when they just went 2-14 and they have a new quarterback? Yeah. I think as tough as it is, because as Jets fans, you've been waiting over a decade just to go back to the playoffs. But would I view that as progress if the young quarterback is looking promising? Yeah, I would take 7 wins.
Yep.
To me, that's a big jump. I mean, that is a big jump from 2. I get the coaching thing, but where are the defined strengths of this team personnel-wise? And then you're just counting on the rookie quarterback to be not just okay, but like to improve their quarterback position a lot. That's a lot to ask out of a rookie. That seems a little rich in what it could be a pretty decent division there with the Bills.
It's the Saleh factor. It's, I guess, some of the additions, Carl Lawson, C.J. Mosley back, and then you have a big draft, and then it's on Joe Douglas to lead the way and make those right decisions. All right, in the AFC North, the Ravens are, in the same way that the Bills are, a somewhat significant favorite at 11. They have them pegged at 11. So that's 11-6 season is where they kind of see them coming down. The Browns are up next at 9.5, so they're kind of a bubble team, which is surprising. The Steelers 8.5, and the Bengals 6.5. This one, I think you could make a case for all these ones being interesting, Marc. But let's start with your Browns there. It felt like 2020 was a stepping stone season to this being a big year for Cleveland. I kind of think it's that way, but PFF doesn't quite see it that way, it seems.
Yeah, I mean, if it's a 17-game season, you're saying the odds are they probably go like 9-8 in their view. I don't think that's I don't think it's too harsh, because I think the wrong thing to do is just to project Cleveland into the AFC title game based on what happened last season. This whole division had the easiest schedule in the league a year ago, playing the NFC East. And, really, like, Cleveland benefited from that. And they faced teams at the right time. They're still a good football team. I don't have a problem with them at 9.5. I wouldn't say they're 10.5. I'd have more of issues with slotting the Ravens half a game above the Bills. I mean, we're a team that seems to me with a number of big questions going into the season.
Right. I think the Ravens have had one of the toughest off seasons in the league. And at 11, they are third in win totals behind the Bucs and the Chiefs, the 2 Super Bowl teams. So that's weird. To me, the 9.5, like, that's 5th among the AFC teams. I know that sounds like it's low, but that's not low. When you're building in these probabilities, ultimately, like, there's a lot of room where you have to, understand that the mean, which is 500, is a powerful thing. So they're still saying that the Browns are like the 5th best team in the AFC, which that sounds about right. I love the Steelers here, probably as my number one gut instinct on this entire board here. is that I feel like the offseason narrative is burying them way too much, putting them at 8.5, significantly behind the Ravens. I mean, what, two plus games behind, a game behind the Browns, and then more importantly, right at 500. The Tomlin's been there for 14 years. They haven't been below 500 one time. They won 12 games last year. I just feel like there's this weird, we overrate the end of the season, and statistically it's been shown the end of the season, which was great for the Browns, although the Browns are pretty consistent, is not any more like predictive than the beginning of the season. Ultimately, they were good enough to win 12 games. They still have a lot of those defensive pieces. I know it's been a bad offseason, but if you're telling me all I need is a 50-50 chance to go above 500, I'm taking the Steelers.
Is it predictive when your quarterback is declining over the course of that year and is not the same guy at the end of the year that he was at the beginning?
No, I don't think so. I think the course of the whole season is more instructive, and ultimately they were a passable offense. They weren't good, but the running game was the bigger problem, and that's still a concern. Their offensive line, and there's a lot of concerns there. Don't get me wrong. Like if Vegas were idiots, like everyone would be just making money. But I like this as a chance to take.
I'm pounding the over there, and the Steelers were an absolute mess in December, and then that playoff loss. But man, they went 11 weeks before they even lost one game before that happened. I don't think you could throw all of that away. I would, by the way, strip one W from Baltimore here, knock them down to 10, give Pittsburgh that to, if you're talking about the averaging it out, Greg, and then you get Baltimore at 10, Cleveland 9.5, Steelers 9.5, and keep the Bengals where they are.
That feels exactly right. That feels exactly right.
AFC South, Colts the favorite at 10, the Titans right behind it 9.5, the Jaguars who went 1-15. This is an interesting one. Set at 6.5. And the Texans, I don't know if anybody's as low as the Texans are in this exercise. In fact, they're not. There's nobody. Predicted to be the worst team in football, 4.5. And it is certainly within the realm of possibility that Tyrod Taylor is their quarterback at the start of 2021 and perhaps deep into it or even all of it. I'm cool with the Colts and Titans. The Jaguars at 6.5. Just like the Jets, it's a big leap of faith for a team that was a dumpster fire last year.
I'm with you. I don't see them being 2 games better than the Texans, for instance. I'd probably go with the Texans over just because things happen. It's not that hard to win 6 games. Man, that's a low number. And I don't know. This whole division's kind of reminding me of the mid 2010s. I used to write the division power rankings, and the AFC South was kind of garbage for a while. I think we're getting back to those days. I guess that's why the Colts number is 10, because there's a thought that they're going to be able to beat up on Jacksonville and Tennessee. But I don't know. The decline to Carson Wentz, I think, could be a problem, and you lost your left tackle. I like the structure and everything there, but this is not a good division. I mean,
that AFC South malaise went on for so long because there were no quarterbacks in the division. Now you're saying if the Colts are going to go 10 wins, you're suggesting that Carson Wentz, you get the better version of Carson Wentz. I think the Titans are a little disrespected here, but I mean, could they go 9?
They're the same as the Browns, though.
Right.
It's pretty good.
I don't know if I see the Colts as a better team than the Titans necessarily. And the Jaguars and Texans, I don't hate what they did there. I think it's just you're giving a boot. You're probably trying to get some action off the Jacksonville thing, but they don't decide where action come from. This is PSF's. They're not a voting lobby, so
it is crazy to think on your quarterback.
Lobby. Well, they're not a gambling house, so it's like who? I mean, I don't know what they're trying to do. I know what you're saying.
Just the voting lobby thing. That was wild. I enjoyed it. AFC West. This one I think they pretty much nailed. For me, I would make one slight modification. They have the Chiefs at 12. That's the highest of any team in the league. The Chargers at 9. The Broncos at 7.5. The Raiders at 7.5. I would probably bump up the Chargers to 9.5 and drop the Broncos to 7. Where do you guys come down on this?
Man, I'm gonna do it because of Herbert, but it's like we're just right back on the same train of giving the Chargers the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, I'm not gonna do it until actually.
Why are they ahead of these two teams that when they've been so disappointing these last 2 years? The Raiders have a lower win total than they did a year ago with 16 games. I know sometimes the offseason narrative is a little bit much. That said, I'm probably going to be picking the Chargers to have a great season, but I don't feel confident at all. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me that they're so beloved.
Well, I mean, if you get Derwin James back and he's healthy, Joey Bosa healthy, You have Austin Eckler for more time this year. You've got second year with Justin Herbert. I think Brandon Staley, I know I get a little hot on these coaches, but I don't think Brandon Staley, everything we know about him suggests late game meltdowns and mismanaged.
What do we know? What do we know? We don't know anything.
Everything that's been written about him, that he is like a football junkie, extremely detailed, that he's not going to be like a shaky game operator, that little things like that seem to have mystified Chargers brass and coaches for a long time.
Game management in the heat of the battle, these guys that are completely untested.
Well, I would say they're one of the most.
Is he calling the plays for them too?
League, though.
Is he calling
he's
plays?
A defensive coach, so it's like he wouldn't be calling their offense. But
right.
They've won 12 games combined the last 2 years. That's just my main thing. And we always say how talented they are. I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth because I'm gonna be rooting for them and thinking they're good, but I would not feel comfortable putting any money. They're already kind of building in that everyone likes this team with that number.
Yeah, and the point you were making, Mark, all those things make sense for the Chargers, but it never seems to really come together that way, whether it's meltdowns or injuries or whatever.
But I'm just like
snake-bitten teams.
In one of the rare instances of this, I'm trying to think more logically than with my feelings, because it's like logically they should be much better than they've been. Mm-hmm. So are we chipping 2 games, 3 games off of this version of the Chargers with a new coach and new all this other stuff because of the weird stuff that's occurred? I don't know.
It's like the same, yes, somewhat, because it's the same reason why, the Ravens make sense to me as the slight favorites over the Browns, because you just give like the benefit of the doubt to the organization, and the Chargers are sort of the opposite of that, where you at this point you should not give them the benefit of the doubt.
Over in the NFC, we'll start with the East, and PFF projects another down year for this former juggernaut. And the Dallas Cowboys, of course, because it is spring and summer, are the significant favorite to win the NFC East at 9.5. So they see him as a 9-8, 10-7 type team. The Washington football team set at 8. The Giants at 7. The Eagles at 6.5. I am dinging the Cowboys a win, and I'll split it between the Giants and Eagles. So I'll knock the Cowboys down to 8.5, Washington football team at 8, and then 7.5 for Giants and 7 for Eagles. So just a big stew of mediocrity with the Cowboys not above anybody.
Sounds about right.
I like that, yeah.
I'm with you. That this division, it does look more interesting at least.
I mean, what did the Cowboys? I know Dak Prescott's back, and I know we got rid of the defensive coordinator, so that's all solved because you got the guy that was coaching the Falcons. But it's like now we're just going to say they're head and shoulders the best team in the division. I'm out of that game. I'm out.
No, but if Mike McCarthy goes, if they go like a soft 9-8, or they go 8-9, if they go 8-9, Mike McCarthy should be out of there, because they do on offense. They should be a top 7 offense.
But they could be a top 7 offense and still go 8-9. I don't know. I mean, NFC North. Let's keep moving. Packers, a heavy favorite, 10.5. Vikings 8.5. Bears 7. Lions 5. Okay, I'm cool with this. I'm cool with everything here. Maybe Aaron Rodgers is probably not going to play at that level again. Maybe he will. Who knows? But still, I think the Packers are just a better team than all these other teams in the mix.
Well, considering they've won 13 games each season, the last 2, 10.5 in a 17-game season is
a little low.
So they're kind of building in that regression a little bit.
Yeah, maybe an opportunity there. I think going under on the Bears would be just kind of fun to root for. I feel like I don't know how they've won as many games as they have the last couple of years. I feel like if you told me they're picking first overall next season, like that wouldn't shock me. I feel like it could totally fall apart. So I'm
banging the under there. I'm with you. The Bears are screaming. They're screaming at me 5-12.
Right.
5-12. What the
I think they could be. They could be a 3. Wait, I can't even do the math. What is
3-14?
Oh my god, that's where it will get me. If some no, probably not. But if some team goes 3-14 or 4-13, for some reason those numbers sound terrible.
Oh, that scrambles my mind.
I don't like that.
All right, the NFC South. So the Bucks just pantsed the Chiefs in the Super Bowl and were basically unstoppable the last 6 or 7 weeks of the season. But they don't get to be above the Chiefs in this exercise. They're at 11.5, which is a very nice season, but not installed as the best team in the league according to win projection, but still a significant favorite here. The Saints, it has to be 5 years since the Saints were this low in this exercise. They're at 9, Panthers 7.5, Falcons 7. Give me that half from the Panthers and give it to the Saints. So I would go 11.5 Bucks, 9.5 Saints, 7-7 for Panthers and Falcons. What about you guys?
Did this come out after Sam Darnold went to Carolina?
Estar. This published date says April 7th, so it was after.
Okay.
So I'm into like checking the out of division schedule, and of course they are doing that when they're making these. And the NFC South plays the 2 Eastern divisions. I like that. You know, if I'm them, I'll take that. If I'm the Bucks, the Panthers were the one that stand out to me though. That it's a little aggressive here. Them improving that much, having to go over 7 right now with the quarterback situation. I don't like their offensive line. Like a lot of questions on defense. You need to get to 8 and 9 there to win that. It seems a little.
Yeah, I think had they made a big splash at quarterback, I'd have no problem with a higher number. But they're a question mark right now to some degree.
If before all this madness, if they got Deshaun Watson, where would they be here? They'd be probably 9.5 or 10. You would think, right?
Yeah. Oh
Yep.
yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, and you know I'm gonna bang that if in another world where we were allowed.
You're banging
to.
the over on the Saints. You don't even have to tell
Jameis.
us, Gregg.
Yeah,
you don't even have to tell us.
Thank you.
Finally, the NFC West, the Rams and Niners. This is the only division in this whole exercise where they've installed co-favorites, both 10.5. Rams and Niners. So they are all in PFF on the Niners getting healthy and becoming a force in the NFC again. The Seahawks, who fashioned themselves a win-now champion level team, 9.5. So PFF thinks they're a wild card team at best. And the Cardinals is an important year for Cliff Kingsbury and that entire operation. They're set at 8, so a middling 500 just below team, which is not going to get it done. In fact, I think that's going to get Cliff Kingsbury fired if they finish under 500 this year.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, if they go 8 and 9, you'd have to question what the vision is there. They have their quarterback. They got the Sloan Award for the greatest trade of last season to bring in DeAndre Hopkins. And they've got J.J. Watt. I know it's not the version of J.J. Watt from half a decade ago.
It wasn't the Sloan Award either. I just want to make sure we got the right.
It was from
the Alpha Award.
It was from the Sloan Conference.
Yes, the Sloan Conference Alpha Award for Best Sports Transaction of the Year.
What they've done. So
the Sloanies.
I was more surprised by the NFC West totals than any other, especially the Rams and the 49ers having the same total as the Packers and the Bills, for instance. That's a lot of
buy-in there.
That's a lot of projection, and I like what the Rams have done the last few years, and I like the Matthew Stafford move, but I don't know. You got to see it, and then the 49ers especially. Let's be real. Kyle Shanahan's had one. I know the injuries have been crazy, but they've only had one season over 500. So they're putting up their high without really any clarity of the quarterback situation, and a little concern that you're asking a lot out of a rookie potentially.
I think they're showing a lot of faith in Sean McVay, a lot of faith in Kyle Shanahan, which wouldn't surprise me from PFF. But the Niners, like last year, probably would have been a wild card team if they weren't ravaged by injuries. But I will say this, that there is a lot of projecting the Niners doing X, Y, and Z, and I do a lot of it because of Shanahan. Like, if he gets a healthy quarterback for the full season and they don't make the playoffs, you'd have to look at what's happened with the Niners in San Francisco and say you'd expect a little more from Kyle Shanahan. So I think it's an important, very important season. If they go less than 10, you're in trouble.
I'm ripping off a half win from Rams and Niners and giving it all to the Cardinals. So I'll put them at 10. Seahawks at 9.5. They deserve to get a little more respect for what they've done over the last 12 years or so. And the Cardinals chill there at 8. I'm not very high on that team, even though they did win the Jumbo Award. Excuse me, the Alpha Award.
I mean, Cliff gets a lot of heat for.
Give us that Cyclops.
They have improved their win total significantly in each of his seasons, and even 8 wins would be another.
He took over a very bad team.
No, but it's It's okay. They're okay. You don't have to fire everyone. Yeah, give us that Cyclops. Maybe we'll do like a live, like when they're announcing the award, we'll go on live on Instagram or something.
If we win that,
or
clops,
right after to say how mad we are or to how happy we are. Either way.
Give me the clops.
Well, why were we not invited to the event? I mean, any gala, award banquet type scenario, we'd be at a round table. It'd be us and probably some other podcast types.
You weren't invited?
No. So you okay?
Yeah, Dan and I got this.
So you guys are going to do your live Instagram from the event while I'm at my house.
Yikes. Someone, a shadowy league figure, emailed me late last week saying they were entertained by our general approach and reaction to our award nomination. And to that I say, don't misconstrue where I'm coming from. I want that Cyclops, and I want it bad. And if I don't get it, there's going to be hell to pay. Maybe some vengeance will be declared. I don't know. I hope it doesn't get to that. I mean, I look at our competition and I respect everyone because I know how hard it is to put together a quality program. But you can't say anybody else deserves the Cyclops this year.
Well, what if we lost to Mad Dog? I mean, that's like a childhood hero of ours. It feels.
I mean, didn't he win like 17 Marconis during his Mike and the Mad Dog run? Can we calm down with that? I love Chris Russo.
And Dan's done the work. He's listened to extensive back catalogs of all these podcasts, like golfing,
taking meticulous notes.
Golfing Joe, Wrestling Bob, and he's been.
If we lose to a golf podcast, it would be time for some deep introspection, right?
All right.
Who is talking? Who is listening to a golf? I mean, you know what? I'm probably going to get like. I listen.
People love golf.
I know, but to sit and chat about it, like is it a 3 times a week grinding through the golf campaign?
Ask Brinson. Will's Twitter feed was a live stream of his thoughts about the golf tournament.
People love it. I try to I'm trying to improve myself as a person enough that I don't judge people for liking golf. Because after this pandemic, everyone should just do whatever you enjoy. Go be there. But I haven't quite gotten there yet. I don't.
Greg is coming at me to some degree.
I do judge them a little bit, even though
I believe Wes was as well. I believe this podcast had a bit of a defiant anti-golf streak to it in past years. I would say that. Not myself, but some of the other members of the show.
I worked at multiple golf courses.
I know we heard that
as a kid.
You did. You were a caddy.
I liked playing, but the whole
I
thing
did too, Greg, and I formed my opinions off of that. Carrying 2 giant golf bags up and down huge hills and making $8 for the entire 18 holes in 1989 or something. Absurd job.
Erica, I'm just continuing the podcast right now just because you didn't jump in soon enough about the Drew Barrymore conversation. It's a penalty to you. Oh, there we go. Now we're all covered. Thank you for that.
Yeah, golf sucks.
All right. And Will Brinson, if you're listening, I'm sorry that you had to hear that.
We love Will. It's the sport that
it's not
he's
a Will thing.
A fan of. Yeah.
Will, of course, of CBS fame. We will be back on Thursday with another show. So make sure you check that out. And then Friday, the NFL Network program returns. We had a nice show this past week. We did some ATN Jeopardy. Ricky Hollywood came out on top. Nice job. Nice performance by Erica there.
Greg did not even make it.
He didn't make it to Final Jeopardy. You have to have positive cash earnings after Double Jeopardy to qualify for Final Jeopardy, and unfortunately Greg was sitting at a goose egg, eliminating him from the competition. He was not happy about it, and he kind of hit out at me, which felt unfair because all I was the host.
Sometimes, though, it's not about who won the title. I was the audience's favorite. It's sometimes the actor that doesn't win the Oscar, that's the performance that everyone remembers years from now. And
I saw you kind of as the Kevin James of that particular segment.
The Gregg German.
I can't believe Gregg German was discussed in today's show. All right, that's it. Good stuff. This is Dan Hanzus signing off for Quiet Storm, the old boss, Ricky Hollywood behind the virtual glass. Until Thursday. Heed the call!
I mean, people didn't even know Gregg German when Ally McBeal was on the air.
No, he had good pop back then. He was
you didn't know his name.
I didn't know his name, but I knew exactly who he was.
I do. I watched Ally McBeal regularly, I would say, at least for a few seasons. Yep. It was a pretty good show. I'll defend it. I think it fell off the cliff pretty quick, but it was kind of fun for a while.